Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going to be diving into something today that I find really interesting.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's this whole concept of astrology as a collective consciousness grid.
Okay.
Not so much about predicting the future or anything, but more about how it might reflect our shared experiences and beliefs.
Hmm.
And the article that we're going to be using for this deep dive is called Astrology as a Collective Consciousness Grid. A deeper look from the DNA Levity blog posted December 16th, 2024.
That's intriguing.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at how collective belief can shape reality and how our expectations can influence our experiences. And we're even going to be touching on things like the idea of a collective memory field.
Oh, wow. That's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it sounds like a completely different way to think about astrology.
Yeah, and I think
Instead of, it's not about, your own personal destiny written in the stars or anything like that.
right.
It's more about how our beliefs that we share might be kind of weaving this reality that we all experience.
Yeah, and the article really starts out talking about the power of collective belief,
Well, okay.
like how astrology seems to really thrive on this widespread participation.
Uh-huh.
It's not just a few people reading their horoscopes every day.
Right.
It's this whole network of people that share ideas.
Yeah, and that really connects to a concept in sociology called collective consciousness.
Okay.
It was coined by this guy, Émile Durkheim.
Okay.
And he said that basically societies are bound together by these shared beliefs and values,
Okay.
almost like a social glue.
Okay.
So if you think about that in terms of astrology,
Yeah.
like the more people that believe in something like Mercury retrograde, the more that we all focus on it,
Right.
and then it can kind of amplify the effects that we think that it has.
So it's not that Mercury retrograde is actually causing more, tech issues or miscommunication.
Right.
It's just that so many people believe it does
Yeah,
that we start to attribute every little glitch to it.
exactly.
And then it makes it seem more real.
Yeah. Yeah. It can almost become like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
If everyone's expecting problems to happen during Mercury retrograde,
Yeah.
then we're going to be more likely to notice like little tiny things going wrong.
Right.
Or even act in ways that kind of create those problems ourselves
Right.
because we're expecting them.
So how does that actually play out in our individual lives, though?
Okay.
Like if I believe that Mercury retrograde is going to cause chaos,
Uh-huh.
why am I suddenly more prone to I don't know, spilling coffee on my laptop?
Right.
Is it all in my head?
Well, not necessarily all in your head.
Okay.
That's where we can look at psychology and the idea of priming.
Okay.
So basically, priming says that our expectations can shape how we actually perceive things.
Okay.
Like, think about those experiments that they do with wine tasting,
Oh, yeah.
where they tell you that a wine is really expensive,
Well,
and then you are more likely to use all these, complex terms to describe it,
yeah.
even if it's the exact same wine that they told someone else was really cheap.
Wow. Yeah, it really makes you wonder how much of our experience is actually objective.
Exactly.
How much are we making up
Right.
in our minds?
It goes beyond just taste, though.
Okay.
There's studies that show that even just holding a warm cup of coffee
Yeah, we.
can make you perceive other people as like warmer or more friendly.
Oh, wow. Really?
And even just bitter taste can lead people to make harsher moral judgments.
Wow.
So if we apply this to astrology,
Mm-hmm.
believing in something like Mercury retrograde
Yeah.
might make you way more aware of little communication problems or, like a tech glitch
Oh, yeah.
that you might normally just kind of brush off.
So then even skeptics
Right.
could be affected by this priming
Yeah.
if they're surrounded by believers.
Uh-huh.
If everyone around me is bracing for impact because of Mercury retrograde,
Exactly.
it's hard not to feel tense myself,
Right.
even if I think it's all nonsense.
Yeah, that's a really great point.
Yeah.
And it actually leads to the next concept that the article talks about, which is social contagion.
Okay.
So if our perceptions are primed to see things a certain way,
Yeah.
then we're more likely to act in ways that kind of fulfill that.
Yeah.
And then those actions actually feed back into the collective and influence other people.
Okay.
It's like a ripple effect
Interesting.
that amplifies the original belief.
Makes me think about those studies that they've done about happiness spreading through social networks.
Exactly.
If I'm around a bunch of happy people, I'm more likely to be happy.
Right.
So I guess if I think Mercury retrograde is a bunch of hooey,
Uh-huh.
but all my friends are stressed out about it,
Right.
their anxiety could actually influence my mood,
Exactly.
even if I'm not even consciously thinking about it.
Yeah, researchers like Christakis and Fowler have actually studied this, and they call it 3 degrees of influence.
Okay.
So how behaviors can ripple outward through our social networks
Wow.
and impact people up to 3 degrees away from the original source.
That's crazy.
So even if you don't personally believe in astrology, you're
Yeah.
still part of this network of shared experiences.
Right.
We're all kind of swimming in the same water, so to speak.
So in a way, we can't really escape it, even
Right.
if we want to.
Yeah, in a way, it's
Does.
kind of fascinating. Yeah, it really makes you think about how connected we all are, in ways that we don't even realize.
Yeah, like even our anxieties can spread and influence other people.
Right.
It's kind of a scary thought.
It is in a way.
But it also makes you wonder how much of what we experience is really unique,
Yeah.
and how much of it is like shaped by this collective field of beliefs
Right.
and expectations.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But if different cultures have their own systems of astrology, doesn't that mean that there are multiple collective consciousnesses?
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
And the article does touch on that.
Okay.
It says that while the specifics of astrological systems can be different across cultures.
Yeah, like Western astrology uses sun signs,
Right.
but Vedic astrology focuses on lunar mansions.
Exactly.
Okay.
But even with those differences, there's this kind of underlying pattern, of
Uh-huh.
people looking to the cosmos to find meaning.
Yeah, like even with all the different interpretations,
Right.
there's still this like shared impulse to connect with something bigger than ourselves,
Exactly.
and like find patterns and meaning in the universe.
Yeah, and that's where the article brings up this theory called morphic resonance.
Okay, I've heard of that.
It was developed by Rupert Sheldrake,
Okay.
and it's basically this idea of a collective memory field
Okay.
where patterns of thought and behavior can be transmitted.
So it's like a universal library of experiences
Yeah,
that we can all tap into.
Right, so it's not just about people in one culture influencing each other. It's
Mhm.
this idea that, similar thoughts and beliefs can resonate across time and space
Wow.
and shape how we see the world.
Okay, so morphic resonance, that's a
Yeah.
pretty controversial theory.
It is, yeah.
But it is an interesting way to look at this idea of astrology as a collective consciousness grid.
Right, it takes it beyond just individual beliefs
Uh-huh.
and makes it more about tapping into this larger field of shared experience
Okay.
where patterns and archetypes emerge.
So if this grid is shaped by collective belief,
Yep.
does that mean that we can influence it? Like, could we collectively decide that Mercury retrograde isn't going to be so chaotic?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
And I think it's definitely worth exploring.
Okay.
But before we jump into conscious co-creation and stuff,
Yeah.
I think it's important to make sure we understand this grid first.
Okay.
The article doesn't say that the stars control our lives.
Right.
So then what's the point of even looking at these patterns
That's the question.
if they're not directly causing things to happen?
Like, what's a practical takeaway for someone who's looking at astrology through this framework?
I think the value is in self-awareness
Yeah.
and understanding if we recognize that our beliefs can shape our reality,
Yeah.
then we can become more conscious creators of our own experience.
So instead of saying Mercury retrograde is making me mess up,
Right.
we say, I'm just feeling a bit scattered right now, so I need to be more mindful.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's a shift from blaming these external forces
Right.
to taking responsibility for our own actions and reactions.
It's about empowerment,
I have it.
Instead of feeling like a victim,
Yeah.
you become more of an observer. You recognize the influence of this collective,
Right.
but you also see your own power within it.
This is starting to sound less like astrology and more like mindfulness.
You're getting it.
Okay.
The article really emphasizes becoming aware of the stories that we're telling ourselves, both individually and as a collective.
Okay.
And astrology can give us these narratives,
Right.
these archetypes that we can use to understand ourselves.
Like I'm a Scorpio, so I'm destined for relationship drama.
Well, that's the trap,
Okay.
Taking those archetypes, too, literally.
Right,
It's
yeah.
important to remember that they're just archetypes,
Okay.
not like set-in-stone destinies.
So we can rewrite our own stories,
Exactly.
even if they go against the collective narrative.
Yeah, if it's not working for you, you can change it.
But how do we actually do that? Like if we're all swimming in this sea of collective consciousness,
Right.
how do we avoid getting swept away by the current?
Now, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
But I think before we dive into that,
Yeah.
we should take a minute to process everything we've talked about.
Okay.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, it is.
And I want to make sure we're all on the same page before we move on.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
My head is kind of spinning after that last segment.
It's a lot to take in, right?
Yeah, like this whole idea that we're swimming in this sea of collective consciousness,
Yeah.
influenced by all these beliefs and expectations, even if we don't actually believe in them.
Yeah, it really makes you question, like, what is real and what is not.
Right.
It's like, is it our imagination?
Exactly. And like, if we're all contributing to this grid,
Mm-hmm.
could we use it to like make a more positive reality?
I mean, that's a question worth considering,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there's one more point in this article that I thought was really interesting,
Okay.
that even non-believers aren't totally immune.
Wait, what?
Yeah, to the effects of this grid.
So even if I don't believe in Mercury retrograde, it can still affect me?
It's all about like the power of proximity
Okay.
and what they call emotional contagion in the article.
Okay.
And they use this really good example.
Uh-huh.
Imagine you're the only one in your friend group who doesn't believe in Mercury retrograde. Everyone else is like, oh my God, technology's going to crash. Communication is going to be terrible. It's the end of the world.
I can already feel the stress, like
Right.
just thinking about it.
And even if you're skeptical,
Yeah.
that shared anxiety, that energy, it can start to get to you. You might start to see problems where you wouldn't normally.
Yeah, like little tech glitches or communication mishaps.
Right, and suddenly your phone battery dying feels like a sign from the universe.
Right, so it's not that Mercury retrograde is actually causing these things.
Uh-huh.
It's that our belief in it
Right.
creates this atmosphere where
Exactly.
we're just like waiting for things to go wrong.
Exactly.
So we see it everywhere,
Right.
even if we don't believe in it.
And that's why it's so important to understand this whole idea of the collective consciousness grid.
Okay.
It's not about proving or disproving astrology.
Right.
It's about recognizing the power of our shared beliefs
Okay.
to shape our experiences.
Yeah, even if we think we're immune to them.
So are we just at the mercy of this energy field, or can we actually do something about it?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
I think awareness is the first step.
Okay.
Recognizing that we are all part of this web,
Uh-huh.
that our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, they all ripple out
Right.
and affect everyone else.
So once we see that,
Yeah,
we can start to make better choices
right.
about how we participate.
About how we contribute to that reality.
So instead of freaking out about Mercury retrograde, I can try to be more mindful
Exactly.
and
There we go.
recognize that maybe my
Yeah.
expectations are making it seem worse than it is.
It's not about denying the collective.
Uh-huh.
It's about being aware of your own role in it.
So we can feed into the fear and negativity.
Right.
Or we can choose to focus on things that are more positive.
Right. Hope, resilience, possibility, all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
It's like we're all co-creating this reality together,
Yeah.
whether we realize it or not.
It's kind of a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, but it's also empowering because it means we can actually change things.
So can we intentionally influence this collective consciousness grid then?
I think that's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And I think we need to keep exploring that.
Individually and collectively.
Right.
Yeah.
Both as individuals and as a society.
This has been such a mind-blowing deep dive.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground.
I know. I have a lot to think about now.
Me too.
So before we sign off,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with a question
Okay.
inspired by the article.
I like it.
If our collective beliefs can shape reality,
Mm-hmm.
what are some beliefs that you hold
Okay.
that might be unconsciously influencing your experiences? And if you could choose to believe in anything, what would it be?
That's a great question for everyone to ponder.
Yeah, think about that, and we'll see you next time on the deep dive.
Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep shaping your reality.